Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. It's time for us to return to the source of possibly the greatest comic of all time, Mr. T and the T-Force. Previously on Mr. T and the T-Force. After dealing with a monster truck armed with a spiky bulldozer front, Mr. T continues his investigation of the criminals in their massive drug and carjacking operation. He tracks down their boss, Mr. Big, who of course is a scrawny guy next to his right-hand man Gladstone. He deals with the criminals, tells an idiot to stop trying to play hero since Mr. T himself can deal with the stuff, and also social commentary on racist cops making assumptions about who should be in what neighborhood. Also, according to the letters page, Mr. T has no superpowers. If the creators truly believe that, then clearly they have been reading that crappy Mr. T series from AP Comics and not the one with the friggin' T-Force. So, you might be wondering why I ended up dropping that PSA comic a couple weeks ago and doing Mr. T instead. After all, the PSA comic was shorter, and Lord knows I've been kind of busy the last month and all. Well, October through December are all locked up, of course, so there wasn't much time to do Mr. T and the T-Force otherwise, after September. And the thing is, the last time I didn't do a Mr. T comic during a year was 2016. Now, I am not so egotistical and superstitious to genuinely believe that me not reviewing a Mr. T comic somehow is the cause of the last 4 years. But on the other hand, let's not take any chances, eh? Let's dig into Mr. T and the T-Force number 5.
Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man punch, wears a party hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazon and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Mother, there is no other like mother, so treat her right.
Cover's pretty good. It's not indicative of anything in particular about the contents, but it does show Mr. T punching through a brick wall with only the gold rings on his fingers. Although maybe I shouldn't add that to the count. That expression does not scream, "This was painless." Call Mr. T! Details on back! And indeed, on the back of the comic is a 900 number for a Mr. T hotline, which has a different motivational message each week.
Have you ever been accused of doing something you didn't do? Well, it happened to me in Mexico City, and I got thrown in jail for it.
We open with Mr. T doing some yard work in front of the apartment building that he apparently owns. One of the renters, Mrs. Thibodeau, asks him to come help move her icebox after he finishes mowing the lawn. But then some other renters ask him to help move a couch.
Where'd the two of you get the money for a sofa when you owe me for last month's rent?
Why don't you cut us some slack? You let Mrs. Thibodeau slide for 3 months.
Mrs. Thibodeau is 68 years old, living on Social Security. What's your excuse?
Mr. T, best landlord.
I see you wrestling furniture. You're in good health.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's good money for professional wrestlers to take on furniture.
Ektorp Sofa! You might be high and mighty around the IKEA, but what you gonna do when Bone Button takes you to Slumberland and cuts you into a sectional? Ooh! Ah! Ah! Ah!
They ask him to give them a break since they're looking for a job right now. Mr. T offers them a chance to do some painting with him, but they say they're too busy looking for a job. And honestly, I sympathize after having to paint this place. Although, Still enjoy it better than the ugly brown of the old place. A woman and her 2 kids come walking up to Mr. T, and she has a bloody scrape on her face. She introduces herself as Emma, and that her purse got snatched. She recently became a widow and is on AFDC payments, and a gang keeps stealing the checks from her outside the post office. She wants to hire Mr. T as a bodyguard. Naturally, Mr. T is more than willing to help. Mr. T's secretary must have a hard time keeping track of all the ass-kickings he needs to deliver on schedule. A bit later, he goes to help Mrs. Thibodeau with her fridge, which needs to be put out to the curb before a new one is delivered by her grandson. She's uncertain what happened to her rent money, but we soon discover that the fridge splits at the freezer section, revealing a tray with money, a gun, and drugs.
What's this?
I don't know. Usually, I keep the gun in the fruit drawer. He asks if anyone's staying with her, and she confirms that the aforementioned grandson, Louis, stays there sometimes. What's in there?
Looks like a mess of crack vials, some cash, and a pistol. It's a crack baby, fool!
He takes the money as rent and tells her to inform Louis that he won't have anybody coming around to his apartment with drugs. Outside, he thinks about fixing up the icebox before overhearing a fight. 3 guys ready to beat up another. Mr. T, of course, intervenes.
No fighting here, punks! You're in Mr. T's neighborhood now! Mr. T don't do fighting! He ends the fighting!
The 3 run off, and the guy introduces himself as Sam Slam, who's scheduled to be in a boxing match next Saturday for the welterweight title with a guy named Kevin O'Malley. Mr. T wishes him luck, but Sam says O'Malley's fans have sworn to keep him from making it to the weigh-in. He asks Mr. T to help him out. The odds are against him in the actual fight, but he's pretty confident. Mr. T asks where he trains, and he says the park, but of course Mr. T knows a gym where he takes impressionable youth, so he takes him there for proper training. Later, Mr. T goes to help Emma get the check.
Once you get the check, I'm gonna hang back a little. I don't want these fools running off until I have a chance to talk to them.
Sure. Talk to them.
No, you got a lot of mouth, and I got a lot of fists for your mouth.
The gang, of course, shows up to take her purse again, despite her pleas that she needs to feed her kids, and of course, Mr. T steps up.
Show the woman a little respect.
Hey, you messing with our meal ticket!
Yeah? Well, now I'm messing with you!
Good line, but how much of a meal ticket is it to steal a small pension check and some government aid money? One guy pulls out a gun, but, you know, Mr. T and all.
Give a punk a gun and he thinks he's a man.
Teach a man to gun, and he'll think he's a man for the rest of his life. Wait. I just want to quickly point out this kind of weird art of Mr. T on the side. There's nothing wrong with it, but Mr. T has always been on the beefier side, and this art kind of makes him look slimmer, so it's a bit odd. Anyway, the punks run off. Emma wants to pay him for his help, but he tells her not to. Not because he's a hero, but rather because the job isn't done yet. If this place is the gang's turf, they'll likely try again, and he'll be on hand to help again. Later, Mr. T returns to the gym and witnesses the kids he enrolled here doing their thing, apparently getting ready to enter a junior boxing thing. Brady, the guy who owns the gym, thinks that Sam needs to temper his expectations against O'Malley. He's 26, while Sam is 33, and he's got a flawless record on his side versus Sam's more mixed one. Mr. T agrees to give Sam some pointers that might help in his next fight.
Okay, to really distract them, you gotta start singing a song about how mamas are great.
He starts by teaching him how to run backwards, strengthening muscles in a different sort of way. They end up in O'Malley's neighborhood, because I guess boxers have their own turfs that they control, where a gang of O'Malley's supporters are waiting. They want to take down Sam themselves, but Mr. T says that, as a professional, Sam doesn't fight amateurs with an attitude problem. I guess you don't fight for free neither.
Wrong!
And he socks him.
Although I do usually invoice them later.
Mr. T makes short work of them, but soon reinforcements arrive and they decide to make their escape. However, on the way, they run into O'Malley jogging. Seeing the predicament they're in, O'Malley stops the gang and asks what the hell they're doing. We don't see him read the riot act to them, but it's probably implied. On his way home, Mr. T spots Louis as he goes up to the apartment. However, when he calls out to him, he quickly runs off. Smart kid, knows he has zero chance in a fight with Mr. T. Still, Mr. T is kind of worn out after running for 7 miles, so he drops the matter for the moment. We cut to the night of the fight as Mr. T prepares Sam for the match, advising him to try to fight O'Malley from some different angles since he tends to only fight in a straight line. Someone comes to get Sam for the fight, but is surprised that he doesn't have any handlers aside from Mr. T.
He's got me. This is a low overhead operation. Nobody's paid their rent and people keep hiring me as bodyguards with no money. To be honest, we're kinda strapped for cash for any other help.
He says he can try to get some cops to help since they may have trouble actually getting to the ring. And so our comic ends with the two stepping out into the arena, where a massive crowd waits to boo Sam, one even saying he's not gonna make it to the ring. Before we head out, let's take a quick look at the letters page. Dear Tea Time, the first 2 issues of T-Force were totally rad. I like T-Force because it deals with real-life problems. You know, real-life problems, like inking cyborgs. This comic is kind of meh, but not terrible. Compared to the larger-than-life stuff from the first 4 issues, this is decidedly more down-to-earth. Sure, Mr. T is basically a superpowered being kicking the asses of criminals, but the problems here are stuff like muggers and violent fans, not Killdozer or something. Clearly most of this is setup, trying to get us ready for the various plot threads later as they expand on them, like the muggers or Lewis's drug connections or the like. As a result, it kind of feels like not a lot happened. However, there's nothing particularly offensive or awful about it. It's just not the greatest issue ever put out. The artwork kind of feels like it took a bit of a step back. Nothing too noticeable, but stuff like Mr. T's weird physique and a lack of backgrounds in several shots feel like they weren't bringing their A game. Still, the crowd shot at the end was pretty damn good, and as always, it's still nice to see Mr. T kicking ass and taking names. Next time... well, it's been a pretty exhausting month, especially with the move, which did cost some money. To help with that, I've rented out Moarte's little corner for the pilot of a new show around here, and we'll see what you guys think of it. Next time, no Atop the Fourth Wall, but the premiere of Late Night Double Feature. After that, in October, well, we have all eternity to know these comics.
Good leaders know what they can do, and they know what others can do better. They share the work and share the credit.
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!